Ndị be anyị ndewonu. Ọ bụ Ada Igbo na-ekwu na Igbo Media. N'Igbo Media, anyị na-ewetara unu ọtụtụ ozi gbasara ihe na-emegasị na Biafra land, n'ala Igbo na mba ndị ọzọ. N'ụbọchị nke taata, o nwere ihe bịara n'iru akwụkwọ anyị nke anyị ga-agụpụtara unu n'ụbọchị taa. Anyị gụpụtachaa ya, unu egee ya ka ọha n'uju. Ị ga-esie ya, ị drọpụọla your comment, like kwa this our video and gbasakwa ya ka o ruo ụmụnna anyị n'ebe dị iche iche arụ. Ozi anyị wetara unu tata si n'aka otu nwanne anyị nwoke, a Biafra activist. Dịka o si wetara anyị ozi a n'iru akwụkwọ, ọ dere sị: Breaking news: let the Biafrans go to avoid more calamities. Famous US journalist warns Nigerian government demand nnamdi kanu release. Ya bụ ozi ka anyị ji bịa tata na Igbo Media. Ị ga-esi ya bụ ozi, gbaa mbọ gwa anyị chere ma mekwa ka ozi alụtụ ụmụnna anyị n'ebe dị iche iche aka. Ngwa gere ya ka ọha n'uju.
More calamity. According to him, the injustice and marginalization the Igbos has gotten in Nigeria has sparked a lot of reactions round the globe that people now see and talk about it. He talks about the challenges of marginalization, political grievances, and infrastructural neglect in Nigeria's southeast region, particularly affecting the Igbo ethnic group. He highlights systemic issues and provides a historical and global perspective to contextualize the agitation for justice and equity. The southeast region feels unfairly treated by the federal government of Nigeria. Despite being economically productive, with states like Imo and Anambra contributing significantly to Nigeria's gross domestic product, GDP, the region suffers from poor infrastructure and lack of federal investment. The Igbo community perceives a disconnect from the Nigeria project, stemming from a lack of representation and inclusivity in federal appointments and governance. Security forces deployed in the region are often non-local, intensifying distrust and perceived bias. He draws parallels with Catalonia's agitation for independence in Spain, emphasizing similar patterns of resource exploitation and neglect. References to Nigeria's military history and leadership decisions highlight long-standing systemic issues that exacerbate regional grievances. Regions rich in natural resources remain underdeveloped, while areas with fewer resources are better maintained. The inequity leads to calls for separation and self-determination as a response to perceived injustice. He advocates and stresses the need for a multi-stakeholder approach to address underlying issues. Amnesty is suggested as part of a broader strategy, but systemic reforms addressing infrastructure, representation and security are essential to reducing grievances. Failing to address these concerns risks fostering extremism and worsening discontent. According to him, effective governance and equitable resource distribution are key to reducing tensions and fostering national unity. You know, sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones rooted in real struggles, stories that make you stop and wonder how things came to be this way. Recently, a renowned journalist from the United States of America, known for his sharp insights and bold opinions, delivered a heartfelt message about Nigeria. His words weren't sugar-coated. They weren't diplomatic. Instead, they carried an urgency that resonated deeply, especially with anyone familiar with the challenges faced by the people of the southeastern region of Nigeria, known as the Igbos. The journalist's message was clear. The federal government of Nigeria, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, should allow the Igbos to go and form their own nation. He called it the United States of Biafra, echoing a name tied to a deeply emotional and historic struggle for independence decades ago. The reasoning behind his statement wasn't about creating division for the sake of it. No, it was about addressing decades of injustice, marginalization, and systemic neglect that have left the Igbo people feeling alienated from the rest of Nigeria. Let us take a closer look at this issue because it is not just about politics or borders, it is about people, real people whose lives have been shaped by a system that seems to exclude them. The southeastern region of Nigeria is home to vibrant communities, rich culture, and immense economic potential. States like Imo and Anambra are among the most productive in the entire country, contributing significantly to Nigeria's gross domestic product. And yet, despite their contributions, these states are riddled with poor infrastructure. The roads are bad, the bridges are worse. Ports that should be bustling hubs of activity are either underdeveloped or non-existent. Imagine for a moment living in a place where you work tirelessly, generate wealth, and play a key role in the nation's economy. Yet the benefits of your labor are rarely seen in your community. This is the reality for many Igbos. It is a bitter irony, isn't it? To give so much and get so little in return. But it is not just the infrastructure. The problem runs much deeper. Over the years, the people of the Southeast have faced what feels like a deliberate exclusion from the political fabric of Nigeria. Federal appointments often seem to bypass them, leaving them feeling invisible and unimportant in the national landscape. It is not just about who sits in office. It is about who gets to make decisions that shape the lives of millions. When you are left out of those decisions, it sends a message. You do not belong, your voice does not matter, and your future is not a priority. This disconnect from what the journalist called the Nigeria Project has led to a growing sense of alienation among the Igbos. They feel like outsiders in their own country. And when people feel excluded for too long, it is only a matter of time before they start looking for a way out. That is precisely what has been happening in the Southeast, where calls for independence and the creation of a sovereign Biafra have been growing louder. The journalist, who seemed deeply moved by the plight of the Igbos, drew comparisons to other parts of the world. He talked about Catalonia in Spain, a region rich in resources yet underdeveloped and underrepresented, much like the southeast of Nigeria. In Catalonia, the people's frustrations have led to a strong push for independence, and the journalist saw parallels in the two struggles. In both cases, it is not just about wanting to leave, it is about demanding justice, equity, and respect. He spoke passionately about how the neglect of resource-rich regions like the Southeast is not just an oversight, it is a systemic issue. Think about this for a second. The minerals, oil, and wealth that fuel Nigeria's economy largely come from regions like the Southeast. Yet these same regions remain underdeveloped, while areas with fewer resources are better maintained and cared for. It is like planting a tree, watering it, and watching it bear fruit, only for someone else to take all the harvest while you are left with empty hands. The journalist also did not shy away from discussing the role of security forces in exacerbating the problem. In the Southeast, security forces deployed to maintain order are often non-locals, unfamiliar with the culture and context of the communities they are meant to serve. This lack of connection creates distrust. People see these forces not as protectors, but as enforcers of a system that has long ignored their needs. One of the most striking moments in his speech was when he talked about the perception of the Igbos on a global scale. According to a survey conducted last year, 73% of respondents in Nigeria's southeast said they felt they were sometimes or always treated unfairly by the government. This was the highest rate of perceived unfair treatment among any ethnic group surveyed in Africa. Just think about that. It is a staggering statistic that speaks volumes about the depth of the grievances in the region. The journalist went on to suggest possible solutions, but he did not pretend they would be easy. He mentioned amnesty as a potential part of a broader strategy to address the grievances, but he was quick to point out that amnesty alone would not solve the problem. The underlying issues, the political exclusion, the lack of infrastructure, the security challenges, must be addressed in a comprehensive way. He called for a multi-stakeholder approach, bringing together leaders, activists, policymakers, and ordinary citizens to find a path forward. He also emphasized the importance of representation. You cannot expect people to feel included in a system that excludes them from decision-making. Real change requires creating spaces where every voice is heard and every perspective is valued. This is not just about ticking boxes. It is about building trust and fostering a sense of belonging. Throughout his speech, the journalist's message was clear. Ignoring these issues is not an option. The cost of inaction is too high. When people feel unheard and unseen, they often resort to desperate measures. The risk of extremism and heightened tensions is real, and the only way to prevent it is to address the root causes of the grievances. But what struck me most about his message was his compassion. He did not speak about the Igbos as a distant group of people facing challenges. He spoke about them as fellow human beings, each with their own dreams, struggles, and stories. He reminded us that behind every statistic and policy failure are real lives, mothers, fathers, children, just trying to find their place in a country that seems to have forgotten them. This is not just the Igbos' fight. It is a fight for the soul of Nigeria. The journalist posed a question that lingers in my mind. Can Nigeria rise above its divisions and embrace true equity? Can it heal the wounds of the past and build a future where everyone feels they belong? He left us with a challenge to look beyond politics and focus on humanity. Effective governance, equitable resource distribution, and genuine representation are not just ideals, they are necessities. Without them, the dream of a united and prosperous Nigeria will remain just that, a dream. As I think about his words, I am reminded of the resilience of the Igbo people. They have faced unimaginable hardships, yet they continue to strive, innovate, and contribute. Their spirit is a testament to the strength of the human will, but even the strongest among us can only endure so much. The time for change is now. This is not just a story about Nigeria or the Igbos, it is a story about justice, dignity, and the universal desire for a better life. It is a story that challenges us to ask hard questions and confront uncomfortable truths. Most importantly, it is a story that reminds us of the power of unity and the importance of inclusion.
Igbos in Nigeria, 73% said sometimes or always they were treated unfairly by the government. This is last year. This is the highest rate of any ethnic group surveyed in Africa. In their view, they are sometimes or always treated unfairly by the government.
So is the issue of injustice?
It is a deep grievance, and it's a disconnect from the Nigeria project, as was mentioned earlier. And I mentioned that number just to underscore the underlying grievance that has to be addressed. So amnesty is potentially part of a package, but the disconnect has to be addressed, and the Southeast is a core pillar of the Nigeria project. Comes back to the discussion of its importance. So all of these issues that are being discussed are inherently political. They're being seen through a political lens. For example, infrastructure, development. The grievance is you have a very productive region that is exporting not just to Nigeria, but internationally. You have, I think, Imo and Anambra are number 4 and number 6 for GDP in Nigeria.
The Prime Minister said in Hausa, but I say it in English, which I know. Igbo, you are no longer part of Nigeria. The federal government continued immediately to treat the Igbos as non-Nigerians. Is that correct? Yes or no?
You didn't tell me when he said it. You told me to read it in the book.
Does it matter?
Sometimes are always treated unfairly by the government.
So is the issue of injustice?
It is a deep grievance, and it's a disconnect from the Nigeria project, as was mentioned earlier. And I mentioned that number just to underscore the underlying grievance that has to be addressed. So amnesty is potentially part of a package, but the disconnect.
Ngwano dalo nene no umunne m dịkunu si na-esere n'Igbo Media. Gịnị kunu nwere ikwu na nkọwa nke unu gbasata maka ihe unu n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị uhuruchi nke taa? Gwa anyị ife iche n'ụdị nke gị, deela ya n'akara kọmentị ka mara ihe i chere, ma chetakwa tụsaa ya bụ ozi ka o werụtụ ụmụnne anyị ndị ọzọ ntị. Ndewonu ụmụnne m, ka emesịanụ.